Hello, everyone. This is Cynthia Kane with the Emporia State University Libraries and Archives. And in this video, we're going to be covering the concepts of cited references and more specifically, how we search for cited references in online resources. So what is a cited reference? This might sound a little bit more complex than it actually is, and it's something probably that you're already familiar with. So by this point in your academic careers, you have already written probably several research papers or co-authored or co-written research projects. So if you think about a list of references that you place at the end of a research paper or a journal article or something that you see, it might be titled references. It might be titled a bibliography. It might be titled works cited. But it's anything that would be a list of actual references at the end of a research paper, a journal article, or other scholarly work that have actually been referred to, utilized, or cited within the context of that work. Now, depending upon the age of the item, you might have footnotes at the end of a specific page. You might have endnotes that are annotated or described at the end of a chapter or at the end of a scholarly work or other type of annotated notes. Those can also be considered cited references. Because basically a cited reference is really anything, again, that's been used to help shape the research and the theories and the concepts in that research paper or article or other scholarly work. It's something actually that you have cited. Now, depending upon the citation style, though, the actual references lists might be titled a little bit differently. So many of you are familiar with APA, the American Psychological Association. And if you've written any papers or articles in APA style, you know that your references at the end of that specific work are actually titled references. So in APA, a reference list contains works that specifically support the ideas, claims, and concepts in a paper. So anything that's referred to in an in-text citation within that paper or work in APA style is indeed cited at the end of that work in something called references. Some of you may be familiar with MLA, the Modern Language Association citation style, and others of you may have needed to use the Chicago Manual of Style. So MLA is a little bit different. The list of works or the list of references at the end of a paper or other scholarly work that's been written in MLA style is actually titled Works Cited, which identify the sources that you borrow from and therefore cite in the body of your research project. Now, MLA will sometimes allow for something called works consulted. So works consulted in MLA style can be a list or a bibliography of additional works that are not actually used or cited in that paper or research project or article, but they are additional works, maybe additional books, articles, websites that have been deemed useful for the reader. So you could have a works cited page, but then you could also have a works consulted page within MLA style. The Chicago Manual of Style actually has two different ways of citation: notes and bibliography and author date. Notes and bibliography in the Chicago Manual of Style is actually very similar to MLA, because in this case, the sources are actually cited in numbered footnotes or endnotes. So they're not actually cited in terms of in-text citations, unlike MLA and APA. You might have numbered footnotes or numbered endnotes. And then the list of references, the list of works that are cited at the very end, that would actually be labeled at the end of that paper or article as bibliography. So that's the notes and bibliography style for Chicago. The author date is another way of utilizing the Chicago Manual of Style. It's very similar to APA. So the author date system for the Chicago Manual of Style is would use in-text citations, just as APA does, and then the list of works at the very end that have been actually cited within that paper or project are called references. So there's a reason I spent a little bit of time beforehand talking about the different ways that citation styles work, because regardless of what they are labeled, works cited, works consulted, bibliography, references, they can all be considered to be cited references in the sense that this can actually help expand your search for information. So why would I want to actually search out and seek out cited references? Well, I might want to see the number of times that a particular work is cited or used in other works. Because if a work is actually cited a number of times, so for example, if I have a journal article and I see that that particular journal article has been cited by perhaps 130 other authors or in 50 other journal articles, it can be an indicator that this specific scholarly work is a seminal or a highly regarded work in the field, and perhaps I better seek out that original work, that original article or book, and read that for my grounding, basically for some very good background information. Now, the same can hold true for an author. If I see that a specific author is cited a number of times for their articles or books, that could also be an indicator that that author is really an authority in that field. And I should probably seek out everything that they have written, again, to give me a good grounding in that specific concept or in that specific subject area. So cited references searching can be a method to identify other works that are worth seeking out for further research. And once you get the idea and the concepts of cited references searching, it can actually be incredibly useful again for expanding your whole information seeking behavior. Now, with everything though, there is a caution, and cited references searching is no exception to the rule. The number of times that a work is cited in other works is only one metric of reliability. It is very much quantitative evidence. So what does that mean? So it means that I might find that a specific journal article has been cited a high number of times. It's been used and it's actually been cited by other authors or other works. And I mentioned a number of 130. I'll use that as a metric. So I might have a journal article that looks like it's been cited by other authors or by other works 130 times. That just means that it's been cited 130 times. I don't know until I actually seek out and read and look at those other works how that particular work was used or cited. So I have to put that in context. So the qualitative evidence comes into play here. Is that cited work quoted frequently throughout the article or throughout the book? Or is it mentioned briefly? Or is that cited work being used as evidence to support or contradict a theory? So I really have to balance the quantitative, the actual number of times that something has been cited, against the qualitative. How was that actually used and how was that integrated within the whole of that citing article or that citing research paper? So a little bit more complex than it may seem at first glance. Now, not all library databases and not all sources offer the flexibility of looking for cited references. But if they do, this is one way that you can actually get started and then find again, maybe different works that have been cited a number of times and then track those down and read those and seek those out. So in this next part of our video, we're going to be looking at 3 library databases in terms of cited references searching: Library and Information Science Source, PsycInfo, and Dissertation and Theses Global, which is from a source called ProQuest. So now what we're going to do is go over here to the library's webpage, which is emporia.edu/library. And if you've not had a chance to see this before, this is the fastest way of getting to the ESU Library's webpage. We are now going to go into databases. And the first database I'm going to look at is under the letter L for Library and Information Science Source. And I'm going to log in with my ESU credentials. Now you're going to notice up here that there's something called cited references. We'll come back to that in just a second. So in the Library and Information Science Source database, I am going to start, first of all, with a search for a specific topic. And I am very interested in the topic of academic library assessment. And you probably already know this, but just in case, within any type of database, you can limit your results. So perhaps I only want scholarly peer-reviewed journals. I want specifically academic journals. And I limited my keyword search to AB abstract because I only want these words to appear in the abstracts or the summaries of my items. If I didn't limit, it would search within the full text of articles within this database. Limiting by abstract means that I will get fewer results, but those words will be mentioned specifically in the abstract of articles. And so what I'm going to be getting will be much more focused my information need. So that's just a quick search tip. And I have 61 references. So here's what I wanted to show you. Let's look at record number 2. So record number 2, Mixed Methods Assessment of a Mentoring Program. Notice down here I have 2 links, cited references and times cited in this database. These are 2 different numbers because they are not the same. In this particular instance, the cited references basically means that there are 67 items that were cited within this article. So that's really the bibliography. The cited references here is the bibliography for this database. But what I'm more interested in is times that are cited in this database. So when I click on that link, these 2 articles, Creating a Sustainable Professional Development Program and Tips from the Trenches, these 2 articles actually used this original article, the Mixed Methods Assessment, within these articles in terms of in-text citations. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that I might want to read this original article because it looks like it's been cited twice within articles in the Library and Information Science database. Now, I do want to make a distinction here. With cited references searching, when you're looking for the number of times that a work has been actually cited, it's best to go to several sources, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So again, going back over here, if I wanted to click on the linked full text for this first article, I could read this article and then it would tell me how this original article, the Mixed Methods Assessment, how that was actually used or cited within the context of that specific database. So that's one way of tracking down the number of times that an article has been cited and how it's used. Notice, though, that this is far from complete because not all of these records have links for the number of times that an article was cited in this database. And that's why I do encourage you to go to, again, more than one source for information. I'll show you what I mean. Now we're going to go up here to cited references. And I'm going to type in my name. And you notice I didn't get any results. So we're going to do Kane C. And the reason I had to change that is that in this particular instance, notice that a lot of these are actually listed with the initials of the first name. So that's why Kane Cynthia didn't work. And I had to redo that as Kane C. Now notice something else that's going on here too. And this is something that's really important with cited references searching. There are a lot of cane Cs out there, and these are references within a larger EBSCOhost database. So what I may want to do is actually go more toward narrowing this down. So when you're doing cited references searching, you can start with the author, but also remember, if you're dealing with an author with a rather common last name, such as Kane, it may be very hard to find the article that you're looking for and to find that in terms of a cited reference. So I'm going to narrow this down a little bit more. I wrote an article several years ago, which began with the title Connections of Evidence. And we're going to search for that now. And I did much better this time. So in this case, this is an article that I wrote called Connections of Evidence Using Best Practices of Assessment in an Ongoing Serials Analysis Project. And I'm going to click on the checkbox here. And this tells me that there are 2 articles within the Library and Information Science database that actually cited my article. So that's kind of fun to be able to see. Again, I could read these 2 articles and see how they used my article in the context of their own research. So you can use the cited references if you have that available in a database, such as Library and Information Science source, and try the cited author, but also if you have the actual article that you're looking for, narrow that down a little bit by that cited title, and then that will help you see which articles might appear in that database that actually cited or used that article. So that's 2 ways of doing cited references searching. If you're just searching for a topic and then seeing the number of times that articles have been cited, or doing what I just did here, which will be more of a known item in terms of searching. When I go back over here to our databases list, now I'm going to click on the letter P for the PsycInfo database. And again, I'm going to go to an advanced search. And I have the same thing that happens up here. I could click on cited references. And again, if I had an author I was looking for and the title of an article, I could do that same type of searching to see the number of times that article might have been cited by others. Or I can go in here do a search by title again, or by topic. I'm doing a little bit of a different search here in PsycInfo. And as we saw with Library and Information Science source, this will also show me with articles, and now I'm into the subject of psychology, the number of times that this article, Effects of Mandala Art Therapy, had actually been cited by other articles within this database. And finally, I'm going to go back to my A to Z databases list. And we're going to go into a little bit of a different database, but this is really important to know about at the graduate level. And it's called the Dissertations and Theses Global Database from a system called ProQuest. And this is a good one to know about because ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global will give you the full text in PDF of many dissertations and theses that have been published in United States and Canadian institutions. So it's a really great way of getting access to doctoral level research and master's level research that perhaps has not been published in other places. So it's really good for supplemental research. But I can also do some cited references searching within the dissertations. So I'm going to go back to my search on academic library assessment. And this now is just searching for dissertations and theses, not articles, since this is a very different database. And I'm going to go down here to record number 12. So this is a dissertation that was published in 2009 about student perceptions and expectations of library services quality and user satisfaction. And when I clicked on that link, I can find out a lot of different things here. This is indeed the full text of the dissertation that I could download at no charge. But what's kind of nice over here is if this is linked and available, this will lead me over here to foundational research on this topic. So this would actually give me some other articles, other dissertations that would relate to this topic. But right over here, remember the cited references that we saw in PsycInfo and Library and Information Science Source. This tells me that there are 163 references. So there are 163 items that were actually cited within this dissertation. However, it looks like this specific dissertation has been cited a total number of 4 times within the ProQuest Dissertations and Theses database. So this dissertation was published in 2009. It looks like it's been cited by 4 different people, 4 different dissertations. So again, quantity versus quality, it's been cited 4 times the quantitative. In terms of the qualitative, I may want to read these dissertations and see how this original dissertation was used within the context of their research. So it looks like that might be a really good dissertation. It was published in 2009, but it's been cited a total number of 4 times. So again, cited references searching. And I could go over here. It looks like there are a lot of documents that have shared references, which might give me even more information about other cited references to look for as well. So I mentioned that in terms of cited references searching, you really want to go to more than one place to try to find that information. The next part I'm going to show you would be one free resource, which is Google Scholar, which many of you have used. And I'm also going to mention 2 subscription-based databases. Our library does not actually subscribe to Scopus or to Web of Science. You would want to check with your local library to see if they subscribe, because they are actually very large cited reference searching, indexing, and citation indices. But there are some free features with both of those that I'm going to show you next as well. And we're going to go next to Google Scholar. And again, many of you may have used Google Scholar just for research. It is a good source of information. It is free. I caution, with something that's free, you get what you pay for. But nevertheless, it can be a good supplemental source of information. Now, at Google Scholar, I'm actually signed in right now with my emporia.edu address. You can sign in to Google Scholar with your g.emporia.edu account. And once you do that, there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can search within Google Scholar, and you can add references to look at later on over here in my library. But you can also set up something called My Profile, and we'll come back to that in just a second. So within Google Scholar, I just searched again for my topic of academic library assessment. And look what Google Scholar will do. Remember that cited references? This article called Are They Learning? Are We? Learning Outcomes in the Academic Library. It was published in the Library Quarterly in 2011. This looks like a really seminal work in terms of academic libraries and learning outcomes, because look here, it's actually been cited in 130 other works. So it's been cited quite a bit. And again, I can look at these to see how these are actually being used and how this was actually used within those other works that cited it. And I have another book here, a Library Assessment in Higher Education. Looks like it's been cited by 113. There's actually quite a few here that have been cited quite a bit. So Google Scholar can be a great place too to do a search by your topic and see how many works have actually cited those other works. The other thing I can do though is go back over here to my profile. And I set up my profile because within your profile then, you can actually specify that you would like Google Scholar to search your works that maybe have been indexed in Google Scholar to see how many times they have been cited. And again, remember I said that you do want to check more than one source of information when it comes to cited references. So an article that I wrote with one of my colleagues has actually been cited 22 times, and it was published in 2017. Another article that I wrote has been cited 7 times. That connections of evidence that we found in the Library and Information Science database, it's been cited 3 times according to Google Scholar. So again, I could drill down here and see who cited it and how they're using this. So this is kind of interesting for me to look at because this gives me a good sense of metrics of maybe what articles I've written and which ones are actually being cited most often. So cited references searching, again, can be used to find other references to look at for seminal works. But once you start getting into your specific professional field of study, you can also use these sources to keep track of your own research as you're publishing and to see your own metrics. So there are 2 ways that you can use cited references searching. So I mentioned that Scopus and Web of Science are subscription-based features, but the links I've given you in our presentation will also let you do something called a preview. So within Scopus, you can actually go back over here and you can search by a specific author, which I did, again, for my own name. And this is something to keep in mind too, whenever you're doing cited references searching, if someone has a variant name. So I actually published some other articles previously under my maiden name, Cynthia Akers. So I might want to search for Cynthia Akers as well as Cynthia Kane and Cynthia Akers Kane. So Scopus will let me search by an author profile. And when I click on this will tell me there are 4 documents within Scopus. There's that connection of evidence again. Going where they are. That seemed to be a popular article from 2017 that I wrote with my co-author. And it looks like those 4 have been cited by 21 documents, again, according to Scopus. Now, this free preview will only show me this specific chart. Because we do not have a Scopus subscription, I only have a limited set of features that I can look at. But again, that kind of gives me some insights. And you can search by other authors' names as well to see what's being cited and maybe what some of their most popular articles are that you might want to track down. So this can be good if you know a specific author and you would want to see within Scopus what they've been publishing and then how their publications are being cited. And if you would want to track down those that have been cited more often. Finally, Web of Science. Again, I mentioned that we do not have a subscription to Web of Science, but the link that I've given you in our presentation will let you set up a free researcher profile so that you can keep track of your own research. And you can also, within Web of Science, search for a specific researcher, kind of what we could do by searching for an author within Scopus. I'm actually searching for another colleague that I've been working with here at Emporia State. So this is their researcher profile that they set up through Web of Science. Again, this is free. This part is totally free that I can look at. But what I wanted to do is actually look at peer reviews. Now, these are actually 4 different journals that they have published in. And what this can tell me is a journal impact factor. And this can be something that can be important for tenure and promotion within colleges and universities, but it can also be a motivating factor in thinking about what journals one might want to publish in if something has a relatively high impact or a relatively low impact. So again, you can search for a specific author within Scopus or within Web of Science. Using these links that you have here, there's a limited amount of information that you can get in terms of cited references searching, journal impact, the number of times an article has been cited, but you can at least do this to a limited degree within the free access of Scopus and Web of Science. Thank you so much for watching our video. Remember that you can always ask for help from the ESU library by contacting us. You can call, you can email, you can Zoom or chat with us at the library's webpage during the following hours in Central Standard Time that are listed below throughout the week. And as you know, you can always reach out to me at ckane1@emporia.edu for any more information, or if you need any additional assistance with getting into the more detailed aspects of cited references searching. Thank you for watching.